Today we're going to give our most controversial music opinions. We're joined by Josh.
Hello.
And Tim, as always. Josh, why don't you kick things off as the special guest? Give us a tasty controversial opinion.
My controversial opinion is that the 1975 are the worst band to ever be this influential. Now, let me tell you why I think that. Yeah, if we think about what I call band music, like as in you've got guitars, you've got singers, you've got the whole thing, yeah? If you think about recent eras, I'm kind of thinking we went from the Strokes into the Arctic Monkeys. That was kind of, everybody wanted to be the Strokes, then everybody wanted to be the Arctic Monkeys. There was a bit of a gap after the Arctic Monkeys, and then the 1975 have taken a hold of that. Yeah, and compared to the more recent equivalents, they're just nowhere near as good. And everybody sounds like the 1975. Every album that you listen to now sounds like the 1975. Every single that's released has something of the 1975. And they are the worst band to ever be this influential. I like Matt Healy. He's terminally online. I'm here for it. Yeah. But as a band, honking.
I'm going to let Joe respond to that.
So I'm going to come in actually and just straight up give one of my controversial music opinions because it's a good battle to have. And that is that the 1975 are the best band of the last decade.
Fuck off.
As a whole.
What metric are you basing that on?
They've had banger album after banger album.
They haven't.
No. Yes, they have.
They had the first two that were all right.
The first one is literally the worst album. This is what I mean. This is coming against two top level haters, right?
I gave him fair props.
Well, you literally just said that their worst album was one of the best. So this is you're just coming at it from a point of view of it's the biggest track, so it's the best album. So it's not correct. But as you alluded to, when I say that they're the best band of the last decade, one of the most influential, they've influenced so much music, as you say, so many copycats. Mm-hmm. I think live shows are incredible. They've changed up the sets. They've gone headline Reading and Leeds multiple times, sold out their own Finsbury Park gigs, probably about to headline Glastonbury. Each time it's been a different theme, a little bit more like a performance recently as opposed to just a gig. Influential, impactful, great music. I won't hate any hate.
All right. Everything that you just said there is true apart from about the music. Because are they fantastic show people? Undoubtedly. Do they have massive influence? Absolutely. The stuff they did at Madison Square Garden, fantastic. And like I say, Matt Healy is a very smart guy. He's done a lot for the industry. He's doing great. And I'm not going to take any of that away from him. And I'm not even saying that the influence they have is bad. What I'm saying is they're the worst band, as in musically, the worst band to have had that amount of influence.
Would you not say it's a little bit more difficult because when you're comparing them to the likes of the Strokes, for example, they kind of formulated a sound that was very unique, whereas the 1975 very much lend from the 80s and stuff and off bands like the Strokes. I'm not saying they have the most unique sound in the world. A lot of what they've done isn't groundbreaking. It's just a good version of stuff that already exists. But that in itself isn't a problem. And the fact that they've kind of shot up to this stardom where they are so influential isn't their own fault. So I think your point in being they're a bad band to be this influential doesn't really take away from my point being that they're the best band of the last 10 years still.
I think the main issue is how contrived their music is. They haven't done anything that's particularly groundbreaking. They've not really started a new genre. They've not really added anything to the genre that was new. They've just kind of carried on. They've basically carried on in other people's footsteps. They've not done anything groundbreaking to change up the scene.
You could say that about practically any rapper for the last 10, 15 years. Like, have they done anything more groundbreaking than Tupac or Biggie or Eminem in his first couple of albums? So I don't think that that's a valid... That's like saying, well, they're just rapping. Well, yeah, they're just making guitar music.
I don't think that's a good comparison, because if we think about the last 15 years of rap, actually a lot has changed. A lot has changed. Whereas 1975, they do a very refined version. As you say, they look backwards a lot. And their production, fantastic, right? Their music is immaculately produced. Again, you can't take that away from them, because they make a very radio-friendly, very sanitized, very mass market safe. Yeah. Shout out to Helena, who I was talking to about this. She said the reason they're so big is we all grew up listening to One Direction, and they're just adult One Direction. And I went, do you know what? I can see it.
To be fair, I think that they wrote one of the biggest One Direction songs as well, Matty. I think that One Direction stole it off them. The thing is, I kind of get your point. I know what you're saying. I think that their sound is less unique than some of the other bands you mentioned. And that's kind of not what I'm saying, though. That doesn't take away from my point at the same time.
I think might need to just reformulate your point because you said they're the best band
of the last 10 years. Like, tell me a band.
I think you're saying they're the biggest.
No, I'm saying they're the best.
All right.
Like, their sound, they have mastered it, especially the last album, Being Funny in a Foreign Language, was very good, like critically received very well. In fact, the last 3 albums, Notes, not so much. It wasn't received so well publicly, but I loved it, and a lot of people have grown to love it. I think that the way that this skate sounds as well, they've got a lot of electronic influences in there, a lot of songs that you wouldn't even expect for them to have made. I think that they are the best band. Like, tell me a band who has done more, who has done consistently released like 4 good albums on the trot in the last decade.
But Tim and I wouldn't say they've released any good albums.
That's very.
But all right, well, let's say you say that they haven't. The majority of people probably would say that they have, or at least obviously
the majority.
Obviously, people that like them. Tell me any other band that have released 4 good albums in a row in the last decade.
But that's your opinion again. You're saying good albums.
Let's say you're right. Let's say that they are good albums, right? I actually think what that's pointing to is the fact that there is no current tradition of good bands. Right, like I'm saying, after the Arctic Monkeys, they let's all be really honest, yeah. Arctic Monkeys fell off a cliff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Once that happened, there was nobody to take over. Nobody stepped into that gap and said, "We're going to be a big band. We're going to do big tours. We're going to release bangers." Yeah, and we've kind of dropped back to a much safer, much less energetic, much less guitar forward kind of musical signature.
But you're correct. That's where the 1975 stepped in. That's why they're the best band of the last decade. Like, no one's come up. No one's told me a different band.
All right, I will agree with what you're saying because that's by default, and that's a problem. That's a problem, and they're so influential because nobody else is doing
fucking
it.
Politician over here, moving the question to different boundaries. Actually, let's talk about this problem. But I'm going to throw in my opinion, which kind of sides with what we're talking about right now, which is if an artist is big globally and you think that they're bad, you're incorrect because they can't be.
Definitionally, they
can't be bad.
Yeah.
Like Taylor Swift, Ed Sheeran, all these big artists that are globally known, globally loved, that can't be a bad artist because of how big they are.
I actually kind of agree. I don't even think that that's that controversial. Obviously, if someone has millions of fans, they've got to be somewhat good. I think like the difference is, for example, I'm really not a fan of Taylor Swift. I don't think a lot of her music is very good for me personally, but I can also appreciate, especially in some of her early albums, the songwriting was quite good. The themes were there. She always puts on an energetic live show. She'll do it for like 2 hours, do loads of bangers, have little secret surprise songs. I personally dislike her music, but I wouldn't say she's bad.
This is the thing though, you get the kind of like righteous people who will say Taylor Swift's fucking awful, why would anybody listen to her, this, that and the other. She's clearly not awful. She can't be awful and be as big as she is.
I think that in Taylor Swift's example, she taps into the experiences that everybody has. She's not actually trying to be unique. She's not trying to say something difficult or controversial. Instead, she's going, I'm going to make something that everybody can tap into. Now, going back to what we were saying though, I would personally say Taylor Swift has more bangers than the 1975.
I mean, undoubtedly, yeah.
Yeah, as in songs that I personally would actually listen to. I would say I would prefer Taylor Swift to 1975.
I mean, you're both looking at me for a response there, but there's fair.
I wasn't looking for a response.
If you prefer her music, fair enough. Like that just is what it is. But a question on yours then, Tim. Do you both think there's any artists that are massive, world-renowned artists right now that are actually bad?
This is my point, though. I can't think that they're bad if they're that big.
So I think the people that come and say, "Oh, Bad Bunny, why does anybody listen to him?" This, that, and the other. Well, there's clearly a reason for it that you can't then say that artist particularly. But Ed Sheeran is a great case because I do think that he's a phenomenal musician. So he kind of changes it up a little bit because he's from nothing, whereas a lot of the big artists now are Nepo babies and they've come from Disney or they've done something in the past. So Ed Sheeran's a bit of a different one. So I think that's usually when I get my back up is when somebody disses an artist like Ed Sheeran and says, "Oh, why is he so his music's crap, this, that, and the other." It's clearly not. He's clearly a fantastic musician to get to the point that he's at, where the whole world will go, yeah, this is a good artist.
I think actually on Ed Sheeran, you've got to give him the props because he puts the reps in. Like I remember how many years ago when he was on SBTV doing that mashup with the loop pedal. Do you know what? That will go down as one of the all-time greats. That was actually very, very good.
That's it for part 1 of our most controversial music opinions. Tune back in, hit like and subscribe for part 2 coming soon. Thanks for watching.